everyone, and welcome back to my channel, Tomcat Stitchery. We've got another Sunday sew along for you. Today we are doing part 3 of the Huxley Bag Sew Along. We're going to be doing the back part of the bag, so the straps and stuff that go on that, and getting that all assembled, and getting the one part of the bottoms assembled to the back of the bag, and then we will stop for today. So let me know if you have any questions down below. Spoiler alert, I have finished the bag as I'm filming this intro, and oh my gosh, it's so good. So I hope you enjoy, and yeah, I will see you guys next, well, Tuesday, but next Sunday for more sew along. Bye. Okay, so today we're going to be working on the back. There's a whole bunch of straps and stuff on the back, so that's what we're going to be tackling first. I have got strap piece R right here. There's 2 of them. The first instruction is to take your webbing and fold it over at 1/2 inch, and so I've done that on both pieces, and I have hammered the living daylights out of them because that's the best way. So now I'm just going to stitch these down. I'm just going to top stitch these down real quick. Again, my machine is set at a 4.0 stitch length. I am using nylon thread in my top and regular thread in my bobbin. Sorry. And I'm using a walking foot 4.0 stitch length and a size 18 leather needle. Okay, once those are stitched down, we are now going to, here, I'm going to lower you just a wee bit. Okay. All right, now we are going to place our strap pieces on top of, I'm wondering which way, on top, well, it doesn't really matter, on top of our webbing, and it's going to extend past the end here. As you can see, it extends past the end there, and that's fine. She says to leave it. So again, we're putting the leather where it has folded over on itself, so we're going to be covering up this raw edge that we have stitched down. And I'm going to keep it flush on that end, and then just let it extend off the end on the end that's not tucked under, if that makes sense. And again, I'm going to use my Wonder Tape. I find that this to be quite helpful in keeping my leather in place. And I would also just like to reiterate that I think my leather for my straps might be a wee bit too thick, but it's what I had, and the red leather for the body of the bag is much thinner, so I'm feeling much more confident. So I'm just going to top stitch the leather in place on both of these straps. Now, as I'm top stitching this, I do want to be careful here at the end where it's folded under, because I have to remember I have 2 thicknesses of the webbing that are under there, so I'm going to want to go slow. Okay, so at the end you've got your webbing covered. Again, it is longer on one end, but not the end that we have, finished off. So I'm going to set this one aside, do the same thing to the second strap, and then we're going to attach some hardware. Okay, these are both done. So now what we're going to do is the template here goes like so. So we've got our folded under end on this end, and then our extra flappy end is on this end. And we're going to be orientating the strap like so. So the little fold end is going to be at the end where we've got the excess leather. So we're going to do this on both pieces, but we're going to mark where the two, or three actually, snaps are. And the way that Maddie has done this, and I'm going to kind of do the same, is she has just stuck a pin just to mark kind of in the middle right where we want those snaps. So one right here, one right here, and then one right here. So now she suggests, yeah, because she's also noted on here, and what she's done is taken a pin and slid it in between the webbing and the leather to mark where we're going to be sewing the box on the end here. And then also this box that's kind of right here in the middle. Make sure it's all lined up here. And again, these pins at the top are literally just sliding in between the leather and the webbing, so that it looks like that. Can you see this? Okay, so I'm going to go and I'm going to install snaps, 3 snaps, boop, boop, and boop, on both straps. And the way we are going to do them is, okay, we're going to have 2 females, 2 female ones, and 1 male one right here. So I'm going to go, you've already watched me do that, so I'm going to go do that off camera, install those, and then I will show you what it looks like so that you can orientate yours the same way and not get too confused. So I'll be right back. Alright, so I've got my snaps all installed. I'm going to show you what it looks like. So here is our folded end on this end, and we've got the nice pretty cap. And then down here we've got the ones that say Tandy, so they're the not as pretty backing. And then if you turn it over, here's our folded end here. We've got the male there, and then 2 females here. And then I have marked by just sliding pins in between the leather and the webbing where we're going to be top stitching this down onto the back of the bag, I believe. So I've got 2 of those. And these are the bike straps. So this is what you would use to attach the backpack to your bike. Okay. Next step, okay, so now we're going to need piece E. I had to move all of my pieces into a bucket because these straps were taking over everything, and I needed to do some other sewing that was not bag related. And didn't want to lose any of my little bitty pieces. So let me move my straps out of the way, and we're looking for piece E. Piece E. Okay, piece E is the back. Okay. Okay, so we finally get to work on my red leather. Alright, so here I have placed the pattern markings with Sharpie right here. So these are the boxes that I believe are going to match up with our straps. I think it's going to go like this. Our big box for our strap, like that, and then the smaller box down here to match up to that one, but let's make sure. Okay, now this is interesting. The strap is not going to lay flat when we do this. It's going to bubble up like that. So again, I've got my big box marked with these 2 pins there. If you can see that, that gets marked to the box here. Now this is the back side, so we're going to want to flip this onto the front because we want this on the right side. So, kind of thinking, I'm going to sew my big box down first. And I actually think I'm going to use just a little bit of Wonder Tape just to glue things down and make sure I'm getting them in the right position. But again, we are sewing it. This is the right side of the red leather. And then our strap is going to be leather side down for this step, because then it will wrap over itself around the bag to do that. Okay, so we are sewing this down, and again, this is going to buckle a little bit when everything is matched up. So I'm going to sew my big boxes first, and then I'll come back and sew the smaller boxes second, so that I'm not messing around with too much of the bubbling. So I'm just going to stick this down, and again, I'm just kind of eyeballing. I've marked the placement in Sharpie on the back, so I'm just going to eyeball. And just use a little bit of the sticky Wonder Under tape. Alternatively, you could take your pattern, because we cut out our pattern piece, and mark it with chalk if you want to. I'm just not. I don't know why. Being lazy, I guess. So again, you've got your 2 straps that are going to go on either side. So I'm going to sew the big boxes down first, and then I'll come back and sew the smaller ones. Okay. Once both of these are stuck down, I'm just going to sew, just like she has drawn on the strap, I'm going to do a box, and then I'm going to sew an X through the box, just inside these pin markings on both straps. Alright, so this is what it looks like, the box. So I'm going to do that on the other side, and then I'll come back, and then we're going to sew the smaller ones. Alright, once you have your straps sewn on in that one spot, now we're going to take the bottom one, and we want to sew the tiny little box where it belongs, right there. So again, it is not going to lie flat. I'm going to show you from the side. See how it pops up like that? So what I have done, horror to horrors, I have actually pinned through the extra leather strap, or the piece of the leather strap here, and into the body of this. They're going to be teeny tiny pin pricks. You're never going to notice. So there we go. Because I just need this, and it's pretty stiff. to stay where it needs to be, and I just don't think the glue is going to do it for that one. So now I'm just going to sew a teeny tiny box between these two pins, and then do that on the other side as well. All right, so now, I can pull that out. So now I've got the teeny tiny one, and this is not very pretty, but that's okay. This gets covered with a strap, I'm pretty sure. And then again, from the side, that's gonna be bubbled up like that. So I'm going to do that to the second side, and then we get, I know that definitely, I looked ahead, this definitely gets covered up by another strap, so I would assume this one does too. You may have some trouble with your presser foot getting around this zipper. Just take it slowly, use your hand wheel. I was able to, you know, by using the hand wheel, get through pretty easily. All right, so I'm gonna do the second strap, and then I'll come back to do the next strap. All right, so now the back of your bag should look like this. You've got your straps with a little bubble. Okay, so now what we're gonna do is take strap Q, which is right here. We're going to set the leather aside for that for just a second, because we're going to take the webbing first, and it's going to get sewn across like this. And you should have notches on the edge of the bag on either side that should match up with, like so, and it should cover your big boxes that you already sewed. Now, we're going to sew this on, just the webbing for right now, and we are going to stop about 1.5 inches, and you can mark this with a Fix-On pen or something, about 1.5 inches away from the edge on either side, but we're sewing a big box. You know, we'll sew the short ends and the long ends, top stitching them down to the bag. But again, stopping 1.5 inches from each sewn side. So I'm going to do that really quickly. All right, so now it will look like this. So now we are going to lay our leather strip on top of the webbing that we just sewed, and we are going to sew the same thing. We're going to stop like 1.5 inches on either side, but sew it down in a rectangle, top stitch it down. So I'm going to use my Wonder Tape to stick the leather to the webbing, and then we're going to sew that. I think I might, once I've done the Wonder Tape, I'm going to go over and just hammer these two spots here as flat as possible, because it's going to get kind of thick. So I am going to go do that, but then I'll come back and we will top stitch it down. Okay, it's all stuck and hammered in place, so now I'm going to just sew, again, 1.5 inches, about 1.5 inches from each end. We want to leave those free. And I'll probably use the hand wheel when I'm crossing over all this bulk right here. And there we have it, with free ends. You know, our webbing and our leather is still free on the sides. Okay, next step. All right, next the pattern wants us to punch rivet holes right outside the top stitching on either side. So I am going, sorry, we're very blurry there. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. You guys have seen me do that. Go ahead and punch my holes and install 2 rivets on each side just right outside the top stitching. Alright, so we've got our rivets hammered in here. This is still all free for the moment. Now we're going to go, in these flaps here, we're going to fold them up over the raw edge, and we're going to put, it should technically cover the stitching. Mine's not going to quite. There we go. And we're going to put a rivet right here to rivet down this material. So I'm actually going to go hammer this and then punch my hole in my rivet, and it will be riveted just like those up there. So let's go do that real quick. Okay, so I've got my little ends riveted down. So now these, when you, they can fold over and snap on one of these two if it's going over a bike strap, because again, this is the back of our bag. It's starting to come together. All right, so the next step, we've got these loose ends here. You're gonna need 2 of your rectangular pieces, and we're just basically sliding this on. So this is the piece that goes across the, we've got the loose ends here. We're gonna slide that on. Wait, I don't want the seam showing. Slide that on, and then we are just gonna baste within the 2, good gracious. We're just gonna baste within the 1/2 inch seam allowance on the sides to stitch those down to the outside of the bag. So I'm just gonna pop both those on either side and baste those in place real quick. Oh, the sun is coming through that window now. So there we have it. Now I've got it basted down on the ends, and this is what we should have. 2 little rectangles here, our flippity flaps here, and now we're going to set this aside because we're gonna go to piece F, which is a pocket piece. It's in here somewhere. And if you are doing view A, you should have this piece cut out in the leather and in the lining. So what we're gonna do is right sides together, we're gonna sew this at the top, this is kind of a trapezoid piece. So the skinnier part, the shorter part is the top. So I'm going to sew this at a 1/2 inch seam allowance, and again, these are right sides together. So I'm gonna do that really quickly. Alright, so once we've got them sewn right sides together, we're gonna flip our lining over to the wrong side. And we're gonna top stitch this in place, obviously with the leather kind of favoring to the back side a little bit. So you may wanna go and hammer it, or even hit it with a little bit of steam. Sometimes just some heat and pressure can kind of help mold the leather. So I'm just gonna go do that real quick, and then we will top stitch. All right, so I've got it all nice and hammered. So now I'm going to top stitch the top of the pocket. For the record, I love the way this top stitching is looking in my brown. All right, the next step is to baste across the bottom of the pocket. So the way that this is, just because of turn of cloth, my lining is now just a hair longer than the bag. So I'm actually going to sew it, get everything nice and flat, and sew it with this up, because I'll just trim off a little bit of that leather, or the lining here in a little bit. But I'm just going to baste this at a 1/4 inch seam allowance so that both pieces are one. the next step is we need our P straps, which are these little bitty ones. And I've been thinking a lot about this. So she recommends, because this can get really thick down where you're kind of sewing these, and obviously my brown leather is just, I mean, you can just see the difference between the width of my red leather, which is very thin, versus the width of that is very thick. So she recommends that you can, I mean, you can put this, you know, this on top of your webbing and top stitch it down like normal and then sew it, but you're just going to have a lot of bulk where all of that goes in. Or she recommends you could cut off the back part of the leather, so then you just have, you know, have the leather wrap around a little bit, but cut it off, you know, cut the seam allowance off the back where you won't see. Or you can just forget the leather and just do the webbing. So these are the little pieces at the bottom that are going to have the rings that your straps hook to. I'm just going to do my webbing. I thought about just doing the leather. Because it's so thick that maybe it would be strong enough. But I would hate for it to not be. So anyway, basically we're just going to be taking 2 of these, I guess they're called, I think they're called D-rings, because they look like the letter D, and they're going to get put through, however you decide to do it, through there, and then you're going to just baste the bottom. So I don't know, I may just do the leather because my leather is so thick. I think I'm going to live on life on the edge. So I'm just going to, I've put, this is strap P, and this also gets a rivet, I believe. So I'm not too, I don't know, I think I'm just going to do my leather since it's so thick. But she does have a couple of options of ways you can reduce bulk there. So this just goes through both, you have two little D-rings with this. It just is going to go through, and I'm just going to baste it like, I don't know, 1/4 inch, 3/8 of an inch here at the bottom, because we have 1/2 inch seam allowances, to make that one. So I'm going to do that really quick on both pieces. All right, so we're coming right along here. So now we're going to take our pocket piece, right side up, and you should have notches here at the bottom, and that's what these get sewn right to there. So, oh, you're not in frame at all, are you? So this is the top of the bag, or the pocket that we have already top stitched. So these are going to get sewn up like this, and just maybe baste them. Again, just sew right over where you just sewed that strap, and they get lined up to the notches that are here at the bottom on either side. So I'm just going to baste those really quick. So now it should look like, look like this. There's the top of the pocket, and then these, which are weighing down, should be sewn up like so. So now we're going to take one, I need to pull my actual pieces that are still in use here out. We're going to take one of our G bases out. Where's my other one? There's the other one. Okay, so we're going to take one of them, and right sides together, we're going to take the longer side, because that's what matches up with our pocket. There's our pocket, there's that, and our little tabs we just made are sandwiched in between, and we're just going to sew at a 1/2 inch seam allowance here. And when I get to those little carriers there, I'm just going to go really slow. And maybe use the hand wheel. But again, we're sewing at a 1/2 inch seam allowance. Okay, so now it should look like this. This is coming along nicely. So now we are going to pull these up back towards the pocket, and I'm gonna punch a hole through the strap and through the pocket, not through the bottom, for a rivet. So I'm gonna put a rivet here, and we're gonna put a rivet here. Again, anchoring those to the pocket, not the bottom. So I'm gonna go do that real quick, and then I'll be right back. All right, so now it looks like this. Okay, so now we're going to baste. We've got our back that we've made our straps on, and then we've got our pocket piece. We're gonna baste, so the wrong side of the pocket to the right side of the back, but flip this bottom G piece up for right now, because what we're gonna do is line up those cut edges there, and that's gonna get sewn on that same seam line that you sewed the bottom to the pocket. So I'm gonna sew that real quick, and then we're gonna very carefully kind of pull this G piece back, and then just baste the sides of the pocket to the sides of this back piece. Does that make sense? So let's look at our layers here. So we've got our back, and it is right side up. And then we folded our bottom back up the way that it was sewn, and we're gonna line those up so the wrong side of the pocket is to the right side of the bag, but you're seeing the wrong side of the bottom here. And we're just gonna sew along that same line we already stitched here, sewing the pocket to the back. So we're gonna do that first, and then we'll baste the sides of our pocket. So let's just do that step first. Okay, so basically this is what we've got now. So we have the back of our bag, we've got the pocket, and then when you dangle it down, there's the bottom of the bag because we've sewn that seam right there. Okay, now to keep this pocket from dangling down, I'm just gonna baste the sides on either side. So I'm basting the pocket to the back of the bag just to keep everything from getting all crazy. And I'm gonna do that probably about 1/4 of an inch. So there we go. There's the back of our backpack coming together, and there's the bottom. You know, that'll be part of the bottom, obviously. That's good words there. Anyway, oh my gosh, it's coming along. I'm getting so excited about this. And I think that's where we're gonna stop for today. So now we have the back of our backpacks done. We have our lining and our backpack straps done, and then next week we will work on the front. So I think probably 2 more weeks of this, and then we will be finished. But it's coming along so nicely. All right, see you guys next week.